Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. We're going to start today's painting by sponging a little bit of white paint down the centre of the canvas. Then I have a little bit of Naples yellow, just dot that on. Take a little off and just spread it around the other side. And then with my sponge, I'm going to dab that into the canvas on either side of the white paint. And what we're trying to do is create a warm, dappled light effect. We can bring that yellow down into where the water will be, move it across, that'll be roughly where the trees and the water separate. And at this point we're just trying to get a rough idea of where we're going to place everything. Now I've got a little bit of permanent rose. I still have my Naples yellow on the sponge, and I'm going to come in with the permanent rose and just dab that on at either side of the yellow. This is such an easy painting for beginners to try, and it's a really nice way to start the painting with a sponge because it keeps it lovely and loose and impressionist style. I'll just put in a bit of foliage there. Now I've got my phthalo blue and a little white, so I'm going to make a really pretty light blue colour. I'm adding in just a little permanent rose as well to make it more of a purple colour. And then with the same sponge, we'll dab that in around the edges. It doesn't matter if it's a little patchy, it gives quite a nice effect. And on the right hand side, I'm going to make it darker, so I haven't added as much white. It's just my phthalo blue and permanent rose. And then with the lighter purple colour, we'll soften it in to the yellow and the pink. We can put some of that blue where the water's going to be. And we're just trying to get some nice coverage on the canvas, put in some lovely colours that we like. And it's going to make it a little bit less daunting and easier when we do a little more detail later on. So I've got my cadmium orange, a little pale violet, a little permanent rose, and with my fingers all I'm going to do is start dabbing on the paint, and again it's going to give me that really nice impressionist style dappled light, and it really is just a case of dabbing it on and putting it wherever you think it's going to look nice. If it's too dark, you can add a bit of white over the top. You can alter the colours as you go and just slowly build it up until you get a nice background, a nice sort of blurry, misty background that you're happy with. And I'm wiping my fingers regularly between each colour as well, just to keep the colours nice and clean and stop them from going muddy. I'll put a little bit of a darker blue on this side, so I've added some black to the phthalo blue because this side really will be quite shaded and in shadow. Maybe add some where the water's going to be. Just smudge it in and make it nice and soft. Now I'm going to make sort of a browny green colour. So I've got my Naples yellow, little permanent rose, tiny amount of phthalo blue, and we'll start dotting in that colour over the top just to add a little bit more interest. Then we can come in with our tree trunks, which is just plain black paint. I've got a medium round brush, and we're just going to sweep those down. Some thin ones, some thicker ones, maybe some slightly diagonally, some straight up. Just put a few in wherever you think they'll look nice. And then on the left hand side, maybe we'll put some really fine, delicate ones in there too. Very faint, just some thin, soft ones to give an indication of a few tree trunks. Now we can bring in some cadmium yellow. I've got my phthalo blue again, and I'm going to mix that with the cadmium yellow to give me a more vibrant green. And then I'm going to use this just to smudge in on the right hand side over the top of some parts of the tree trunks, and we'll just start building up the colours and building up the foliage. I'm doing the same with my lovely purple colour, which is my pale violet and phthalo blue. And we're really going to just work our way around the painting, building up the colours, building up the light areas and the shadow areas. I'll maybe put a little bit in the water as well. We'll brighten up those colours, because I wanted this painting to be very colourful. You're certainly not going for realistic colours, we're going for a nice vibrant impressionist style. Maybe put in a little yellow. And I can already tell this is going to be a little bit too bright and heavy on the yellow, but we can easily fix that. All I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of white paint on my finger, and then we'll start softening that, lightening the yellow and just blending it all together so it isn't quite as harsh. We'll put in the reflections. Swirl those in. And then the next step is to put in a nice deer as a focal point. So I'm just going to sketch mine in roughly. I'm just sketching in the outline, but to make it easy for yourself, you could find a picture that you're able to use, trace that, and then put it onto the canvas. We'll make a nice dark brown colour, so a little bit of permanent rose, some yellow, a little black, and all I'm doing now is blocking out the shape of the deer with this dark brown colour. So I've got a small round brush to make it a little bit easier. A little tip is to keep the legs nice and thin and delicate. Don't make them too thick. If it's not quite right, don't worry about it. You can always come in around the edges with a little bit of white and Naples yellow to tidy up the shape. And while that's drying, I'm going to come in and add a few details around the painting. So maybe we'll put in some highlights. We've got my permanent rose in yellow. We can just start adding a few little touches here and there and a few highlights, just to get that light coming through. Maybe some nice reflections on the water, we can start adding those and sort of just bringing everything together a little more. There we go. Now that the paint on the deer has dried, it really is just a case of building up the lighter and darker areas to get a rough shape of a deer. You can put in as much detail as you like, you can keep it fairly simple. So I've got a warmer brown colour, I've added more cadmium yellow, a little white, and I'm slowly just working my way around the deer, trying to build up the light and the darker areas. And again, you can cover it if you make a mistake. Just keep working on it until you get something that you're happy with. You could always use a little burnt sienna or some other browns that you have already made up to if you want to. Put some reflections in. And then with my vibrant green, I've got my paintbrush, I've got a medium round brush, and we can start putting in just a few little details. So some smaller leaves, a little bit more defined, maybe some splashes of colour here and there around the painting as well. Or maybe put in some brighter red reflections. And I've got a palette knife with a little bit of white paint on it. We can maybe start adding some sparkles to the water as well. Just scraping it from side to side on the dry paint. It'll give us a really nice effect. Thanks for painting with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button for me, and I'll see you next time.